got Tony Hinch at the Garden.
Hinch, man.
The hunger, man.
And then
The hinge pin, dude.
the hinge pin got loose.
It's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now.
It's a bad thing to do. The whole thing's bad.
If Trump loses,
It's the ultimate.
and it is Tony's fault, and because of that, World War III does take place.
Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
You know, that joke, I would have told him, don't you dare do that joke.
And I'm going to see the blast radius before we go out in a
Yeah.
hot flash. I'm going to go, an island of garbage?
Okay. All right. Okay.
He'll get through it. He's going through a storm. Like when he got canceled in the past, he came back way stronger.
Anyone who gets canceled for a joke, in trouble for a joke, if they're funny, it accelerates their career.
Tony Hinchcliffe is known for his offensive, politically incorrect humor. So, naturally, it made perfect sense for the people running this country to invite him to perform at a campaign rally just weeks before one of the biggest elections in our nation's history. There's a lot to unpack here, with multiple angles to consider. If you followed Tony's career, you'd know this joke doesn't even crack the top 100 of the worst things he's ever said. The main reason this is blown up is because it's political. Ammunition for one side to use to their advantage. Ironically, the rally organizers apparently reviewed and approved Tony's jokes beforehand. Then there's Tony's side. He knows that getting canceled only boosts a comedian's career if they're actually funny. What makes this even funnier is that while Tony may have just rocketed to a new level of fame, it would be hilarious if this joke ended up playing a role in Trump's loss, possibly changing the course of American history. We'll hear what Joe Rogan had to say about the joke, how the mainstream media is covering it, and the celebrities that have condemned it, but first, here's Matt and Shane's reaction.
We're not Joe Biden, dude. We don't think half of the people are garbage. All right, that brings us to our first.
That was so divisive when he said
Why
that.
would he say something like that?
Dude, that's like, I don't know, man.
For real though, think how funny that is. You got Tony Hinch at the Garden.
Hinge,
The
man.
hunger, man.
And then
The hinge pin, dude.
the hinge pin got loose, and
Master
then
General.
Joe Biden gets on, responds on a Zoom call. Like he's like, the camera's like up here. He's like, "Yeah, well, they're fucking garbage,
This
dude."
rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters, his demonization.
I can't get Hinchcliffe off the brain, dude.
Bro.
That's all I think about all day. It makes me laugh.
It's the funniest thing ever.
It's the funniest thing that's
If
happened.
Trump loses, it's the ultimate.
And it is Tony's fault. And because of that, World War III does take place. Tony Hinchcliffe is Archduke Franz Ferdinand. He is. People are going to look back and go, why did this happen?
Dude, I'm going to be holding my whole family and I'm going to see the blast radius before we go out in a hot flash. I'm going to go, an island of garbage?
You can see the blast radius and you're going to go, unbelievable. Just go into dust, dude.
Yeah, arguments online
Tony,
about
bro.
that.
I'm going to be holding my kids and be like, actually, it was kind of bullshit. He actually kind of crushed it on you.
It actually was funny. It's
hard to do that
It was 11 a.m., dude. That was pretty tough. Bro, I saw a Kamala Harris commercial with Tony Hinchcliffe in the beginning of it in like black and white.
Yeah, they
hit
put
him
him
with
in
the
the
black
evil
and white.
colors, yeah.
Oh my God.
Bro, it's so good.
Floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
I will never forget what Donald Trump did. He abandoned the island.
It's the funniest person possible.
I don't think anyone's take on this whole mess is going to be funnier than Matt and Shane's. The idea that a comedian could actually end up playing a role in American history is just hilarious. It's like we all slipped into a different timeline back in 2016, because you couldn't script this to be any more ridiculous. Trump actually responded to the garbage joke while sitting in a garbage truck.
I love Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico loves me. I don't know anything about a comedian. I love Puerto Rico. Nobody's done more for Puerto Rico than me. I took care of them when they had the big hurricanes, and nobody gets along better with Puerto Rico and the Puerto Rican people than me. They love me and I love them.
Trump actually claimed he didn't know who Tony was, but here's the thing. When Trump was on Rogan's podcast, he said he watches Joe all the time, so you'd think he'd know who one of Joe's closest friends is. How else did Tony end up with the connections to land the spot on that stage? Then again, maybe he didn't. The main point here is this. Trump addressed this from a garbage truck. This whole situation is the perfect summation of the comedy and tragedy that is modern America, wrapped up in one big garbage scenario sparked by a joke about garbage. Maybe we should all be focusing on the real issue here, the overflowing landfills in Puerto Rico.
Here's where that joke comes from. Tony is actually obsessed with the Pacific garbage patch, and like the fact that we just throw, like we were talking about, like recycling. Like recycling doesn't work. They don't do it. Most of your bottles, when you throw in a recycler, they get put in landfills. So there's a landfill in Puerto Rico that's way overflowed. Puerto Rico has a legitimate trash problem, because they're on an island. Like, where are you going to put it, right? There's all these people living on that island. Where are you going to put it? And so they have landfills. Their landfills are way over capacity.
It's honestly hilarious that this joke, some people are getting so bent out of shape about, came from a guy who's actually interested in the Pacific garbage patch. But the way Tony delivered it makes it easy for people to twist it like he's talking about the people instead of the actual trash problem.
Don Rickles was almost like, he was in this category of ultra famous comedian, right? He was in this Dave Chappelle type category where just seeing Don Rickles, all of a sudden it was a comedy show. Like, oh my God, Don Rickles is here. Tony Hinchcliffe does not have that, right? If Dave Chappelle went up and did 10 minutes in front of Donald Trump or 10 minutes in front of Kamala Harris, that's a different thing. Because it's like he's a cultural icon and you immediately go into stand-up comedy mode. Like, oh, Chappelle's here, right? That's what Don Rickles had with Reagan. Tony doesn't have that. It's a bad thing to do. The whole thing's bad.
I don't think it's fair for Joe to say Don Rickles or Dave Chappelle could have pulled it off while Tony couldn't. If either of them had been on that stage delivering the same set, we'd be seeing the exact same backlash. It's all about politics. Welcome to season 47 of America, folks.
Why did you do that? I tell all comedians, don't ever do comedy at something that's not a comedy event. Don't do it. Don't ever do comedy at a place that's doing also. Doing, is it gonna have a bunch of speakers and you're gonna go up and do 10 minutes? Don't ever do that. It's a terrible setup. It's a terrible setup, and it's a political rally, and you're doing jokes like you're in a comedy club. It doesn't. You can't. Don't do it.
I don't really blame Tony, though, because Tony is what Tony is, right? Like, if you want an insult comic, Tony is the best in the world.
That's literally his great specialty is roasting.
Right.
So he's the best roaster ever.
If you book Tony Hinchcliffe is going to be Tony Hinchcliffe.
Exactly.
So whoever booked him, that's the person that's made the mistake.
Not just booked him, but apparently went over his material.
Did they go over his material?
No.
Oh my.
This is what I've read on the internet, so it must be true. I gotta tell you, that joke kills at comedy clubs. I don't like the joke. It kills. And I said to him, it's just like, if you're Puerto Rican and you hear that in the audience, like, oh, but it's a funny joke.
It's wild to think that someone from Trump's team actually reviewed Tony's material and let him go on stage with it. It's funny how Joe says the joke is funny, yet turns around and says he doesn't like it because he doesn't want to get dragged into the controversy for showing support. Then he admits it kills in comedy rooms. Joe's guest makes a good point. If you hire a roast comic, you should be prepared for what's coming. Jon Stewart made the same point.
In retrospect, having a roast comedian come to a political rally a week before Election Day and roasting a key voting demographic, probably not the best decision by the campaign politically. But to be fair, the guy's really just doing what he does. I mean, bringing him to a rally and have him not do roast jokes, that'd be like bringing Beyonce to a rally and not have... Oh.
It's cool to see how tight-knit the comedy community is. Jon Stewart could have easily thrown Tony to the wolves like much of the media, but instead he stepped up and backed him. While Jon Stewart and much of the comedy world rallied around Tony's statements, viewing them as a joke, several celebrities voiced their disapproval, names like Jennifer Lopez, Bad Bunny, Mark Anthony, and even Pawnee's own April Ludgate.
I believe my sweet abuelita wasn't here to hear that disgusting remark, but if she was alive today, I think she would say, Tony Hinchcliffe, go yourself. And yes, the Wall Street Journal can quote me on that.
April was a lot cooler when she was with Andy Dwyer. I don't know what happened to her. She, along with many celebrities of Puerto Rican descent, voiced their disdain for Tony's jokes. However, the Puerto Rican rattlesnake himself, Luis J. Gomez, came to Tony's defense.
He did what I assumed Tony was going to do. When I heard that he was doing it, I was like, oh, he's going to roast.
He's going to go off.
Yeah, that's what he does. Obviously, literally what he does.
He sold out MSG twice too.
The last high-profile thing that he did was the Tom Brady roast, and he roasts brutally, and he's very good at it. So it was not even a slight surprise to me when I clicked on the video to see what he was doing. One of the biggest moments in like political history. This is massive because it's Trump and it's so crazy heavy politicized. They're making it into a much bigger thing than it really needs to be. They are jokes. We all know they're jokes. And everyone in the world knows they're jokes. Kamala knows their joke.
Out of all of the reactions I've heard, I appreciate Lewis's the most. People should have known what Tony was going to bring to the table, and let's be real. Everyone knows it's a joke. The timing of the joke just happened to land during a crucial moment in politics, and it's being used for political purposes.
Politics are gay. I completely agree.
The funniest part of all of this, in my opinion, is that while everyone is busy squabbling over the jokes and their reactions, Tony Hinchcliffe is probably chilling in some villainous Liberace-esque lair, lounging in a giant peak rhinestone chair like Mr. Burns. He knows that even if he ends up being the catalyst for World War III, it was all worth it for that sweet, sweet fame.
That anyone who gets canceled for a joke, in trouble for a joke, if they're funny, it accelerates their career 100-fold. This happened to Shane Gillis.
Yeah, with Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, and you look at that mistake. Same thing happened with Ari Shaffir. If it's for a joke, you're only going to help the person.
That's all I have. Let me know what you think.
Are you guys excited about the election?
I can't fucking wait.
I can't wait. I'm so excited for the future of the country.